Yeah. So let's talk about regrets coming abroad. Or should I? Let me retrace my steps. Like, let me rephrase this. Yeah. So, have there been times when you see something or you want to do something and you just think to yourself, like, I wish I was doing this in Nigeria, or I wish this was happening in Nigeria. It would have been much more straightforward, easier, or just more satisfying than what you get here. I mean, so
Mm,
it's not really regret. It's just like wishes, like wishing.
yeah.
I understand. Yeah, there are a lot of things there that you wish were
Maybe,
working the
maybe,
way.
maybe
Yeah.
saying like memories that bring some kind of nostalgic moment, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, maybe things like that. So, I mean, you wish like, I wish I was doing this in, or I wish I was in Nigeria for this.
yeah, a lot.
I mean, I'll let you start. I have
Yeah,
specific questions that I also
yeah,
want to bring up relating to that, but I will let you start the conversation.
yeah. Interesting. I mean, I have quite a number of them. The first one that comes to mind is, I think just taking a stroll back in Nigeria. This was, I mean, my
Taking
fans.
is true.
Yeah,
You didn't
so
just step out
yeah,
of the house and take
I
a
mean,
walk,
like
right?
I just step out of the house randomly back in Lagos, and I just
But you can do it here too, right?
so here is cold, right? The
Because of the
weather,
temperature,
you have
right?
to like,
So you can
hey,
only do it in the summer and the fall, and
absolutely
that's it.
right. So you have to always look out, especially for someone like me that lived in the Midwest, like places that are really very cold with snow and everything. Then living in Seattle where it's always rainy and all of that, right? You just cannot say, "Oh, don't worry, I'll just take a stroll in the next 30 minutes." That
I
was
mean, you
something I
could do
really,
that, right? I've been out in, I mean, there was a time in Seattle, I think that was 2 years ago, I was in Seattle
yeah.
and I saw people wearing I've forgotten the name of the brand. There's these raincoats
Oh,
everybody
okay.
wears that. We're jogging in the rain. It was extremely
Yeah,
cold. It was
yeah,
raining and I saw people just
yeah.
jogging around and
Probably,
walking around.
probably it to be something that will come with time, right? But you know that
We
feeling
have
like
to
when
take
we're in
that first step.
Nigeria, right? You could
Yeah.
just take a stroll and great friend, like just keep strolling. Like you might not really even have anywhere you are going. Like I
Yeah,
do
no
that a lot,
destination, just walking
randomly
around.
having fun. You see a lot of things happening on the street. Like you can even get to meet random people, right? And I think closely related to that is buying things on the street. So I have this habit back then in Nigeria. Like I just go out of my house, go on the street and just buy roasted corn, buy
So
granola.
street food, right? So
I
like
love street
especially
food a
street
lot,
food,
right?
yeah.
So I mean that's not something you can randomly do here, right? So
Yeah.
you just approach a bookie and just like buy, few stuff. I mean, so
Yeah.
we really we really did appreciate some of those things back then, but
Yeah.
I mean, those are stuff like when I look back,
You also have to think about the costs. Those things are like super cheap, I mean
absolutely super cheap.
inexpensive that
Like,
you can
I mean, they are
mm,
so cheap, like you really don't need to plan to buy them, right?
exactly.
You just
So
buy, you just buy them randomly unplanned. I
yeah.
mean, those are
I
stuff
mean,
you really cannot do here, right? You have to order, you have to like be deliberate, be very intentional, plan what you want to order and all of that. Except maybe there are some areas where you can get to buy things on the street, but
yeah.
I've not been lucky to, to see
Yeah, to
those kind
live
of
in
things.
any
Yeah.
of those areas. I mean, now that you said it, I remember like back then, like I mean, this is not advertising for it. I mean, I'm not going to mention the name. There's a grills place within my estate back then in Nigeria. Every Friday, I'll just go get it grilled catfish or grilled croaker
Yeah.
with fries. I mean, actually fried yam,
Yes.
not the kind of fries you get here. Fried yam with that pepper sauce and
Actually,
just get that and some kind of chilled drink and
awesome.
Friday
Nice.
night. I mean, if I decide not to hang out with friends
Mhm.
anywhere Friday night, I can just do that at home. I miss that really. So it's so hard to do that. Yeah. This kind of experiences. Yeah. Yeah.
I do that a lot too. I mean, mostly there we just basically just work. We're like mostly single, living alone with friends. So,
Exactly. Was
um,
easier then.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing, like, we really did not. I don't want to say we undervalued what we had. Like, we just didn't see it as any
Yeah, it
any
was no
big deal,
big deal,
right?
right?
Right.
Yeah. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and you also mentioned the aboki thing. I mean, I'm not sure everybody watching this will relates to
Yeah.
that. I mean, these are just, I mean, aboki literally means friend, one of our languages in Nigeria. So, but for specific people from some part of the country. We just call them, they're like, it's their language to say French. So when you approach them, you want to transact with them, they just call you, hey, Abuki, Abuki. Just means my friend. So the
Yeah.
name stuck and we just call them Abuki, Abuki like that. So like those guys could be out selling things in their kiosk at 1 a.m., 2
Uh-huh.
a.m. They are there all round the clock. You can, even while they're sleeping, you can get there and still knock on their kiosk and they open up and sell whatever to you. I mean, those are some of the things you also miss in this part of the world. I mean, there are convenience stores that are open 24/7 too, but they are not common. You just don't see
Yeah.
them on every
You don't see
street.
them on the
Like,
neighborhood as such, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you don't see them on every street. And I mean, no matter, I mean, even the eyebrow areas back in
Uh-huh.
Nigeria, some of them, you could just be the gate man of the one of the houses in
Yes.
there that will just be selling that stuff, and everybody relies on him to be there to sell bag of pure water to them at
Yeah.
1 a.m.
Yeah.
midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. Like something that just came to my mind right now. One thing I
yeah.
also miss again is street football. I know you might argue like you might have chances to play street football here in the US, right? But again, it depends on where you are
Street
living.
football.
Yeah, street football. Like we
I mean,
play.
it's not as
Otherwise, you just become a nuisance to some people. You know what I'm saying,
yeah.
right?
I mean, you
So,
can't just carry your ball and play anywhere.
um,
Like, yeah,
that was something we really enjoyed back then. You know, like come rain, come shine, we just like
yeah.
bring the
Any
ball out and
piece
we
of
start playing.
land that is not been
Yeah,
developed, so we could just
yeah,
put up our goalpost there
yeah,
and start
yeah,
playing.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
start
know,
playing
so
football. Yeah, but here you can't just do that. I mean, there are football. I when we say football, soccer to some
okay,
people.
right?
So
Mhm.
we have football field around like where
Yeah,
people play pick up soccer, and so here you can just set up your backyard and start playing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, closely related to that is also going to the viewing center. That was also
Oh
something
yeah, I
I'm
mean
picking some nice memories, right? So that was
yeah,
also something that was really very common, popular in Nigeria. I mean, sometimes you could even watch it at the comfort of your home, but the fact that you are with friends, like meeting new people, like different faces, like
yeah.
that attribute of different people coming together, different sporting clubs was really something to really miss, right?
I
Like,
mean, but if you look at it, one, I mean, there are two sides to this viewing center things that I just
yeah,
mentioned, right? One, I mean, it's one of those things that reduce the cost of living, right?
yeah,
Because you don't get to own your own cable,
mhm,
monthly subscription, and all of that.
absolutely,
But on the flip side, if you look at it also, is it really legal? Is it fair? Like one person paying for subscription and letting like I'm charging 200 other people to come watch in their
mm.
house, like charging them money. I mean, I can't remember there was any law against it, but I
I mean,
felt like,
so again, I mean, those are
yeah,
some of the few. I know it might really get controversial, but again, some of these viewing centers, like they just like do it for free, especially for like final matches, big games and all of
I
that. I
mean,
know a
but
lot
out
of
of
them
all the games in
commercialize
the
it.
season, yeah, but
Right?
I mean, you know how much the
Yeah.
company, I mean, back then, DSTV,
Uh-huh.
you know how much DSTV could be making if maybe 10 of those 200 people going to the viewing center was paying that
Yeah.
to their pockets, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mommy,
but
but
then those things were
I mean,
expensive.
it
Yeah.
absolutely like they will never
Yeah.
get those 10 to 12 people to actually do
Yeah,
their
because they were
subscriptions.
quite
Right? No
expensive in
point,
a
right?
country where you are paying
So
back then paying
yeah.
18K or how much as minimum wage, and the
Yeah.
subscription was even more than that. But
And
like to get
again,
premium
and
subscription
again,
like 12K then.
don't forget, like side by side to these viewing centers, again, when you go to like restaurants, like eateries, like big
Exactly,
event,
eateries.
I
I
mean,
mean,
they
they're
just
showing
show
it on
someone. I mean, it's
TV
just
live.
there, and you see people just come in to
Yeah,
drink pubs, right? They just come in, take
yeah.
a
I
drink.
mean, yeah, but they're charging. They could argue that they're charging for the
Yeah, it's
drinks
just
and the
like
food,
value
not
added,
for
right?
yeah, exactly,
Mm.
not charging to
Yeah,
come watch that game. I
yeah.
mean, but that's by the way in this
Understood.
conversation.
I mean, what is most
Yeah,
important is that fun, right? That,
yeah.
that ambient, that nice environment that is being created, so um that that was something like previously you would think might be something maybe like it's chaotic because of the noise, the agitations and everything. But again,
Yeah, I mean, but
living
now you
outside
look
of
back
that
at it,
environment
yeah,
now, you now be like, oh
mhm,
my God, like, right?
yeah, yeah. I I mean, I've seen some games live in stadiums there, and
Yeah.
just people just clapping when things happen. Now, like, why are you clapping? Like, you just shout and make noise. Sometimes you just hear claps, and it's kind of weird. I mean, not like they don't scream or shout when some other things happen, but I think they're kind of coordinated. For some things, they clap, and you just
Okay.
wonder, like, this looks weird to me, but
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. It's different ways of catching fun or
Ah,
enjoying things
yeah.
for different
Another
people. Yeah.
thing, another thing coming to my
I was
mind is
going to before we even leave
okay.
the food thing. Yeah, I was going
Yeah.
to ask you like shopping, going to the market to
Mhm.
shop for, especially shopping for fresh food. Like
Yeah.
I know back in Nigeria, like sometimes my dad would just wake up Saturday morning and say, "Oh, let's go to
Okay.
this seafood market. You are shopping everything fresh
Yep.
from the market, even like for vegetables
Mhm.
and fruit and everything. And you're getting them straight from farmer. Yeah, there are farmers markets here, but they're not as common as back then in Nigeria when you're getting everything uncooked, unprocessed. Like you just
Yeah.
cook everything to taste. I mean, I really miss that. The only part I don't enjoy is when I go with my mom. My mom goes there and try to like
Price down.
negotiate everything down, price everything down, bargain like not like it's just haggle with them. Like I start feeling embarrassed myself. Like you start feeling embarrassed. Like how much are you going to charge for this basket of tomatoes, for example? And they say, bring 3,000 naira, but I'm not gonna say 200 naira. I'll just be like, what? 3,000 to 200.
Interesting.
I'll just feel like the ground should just open up and
Interesting.
swallow me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, talking about markets generally, like farmers market. Yeah. To your point is, I mean, you can't really compare, right? But again, I remember most cities, or let me say, a number of cities do have farmers market, but the only thing is that they
Yeah.
don't open like they just kind of
Every
open
day, exactly.
occasionally. So you need to like
Exactly.
be on the lookout. Like,
That
hey,
specific days
mandatory
they
farmers market
actually, yeah,
next week, then you have to like plan
yeah,
to go to the market. Then you see
yeah,
all sort of things. You see a lot of cheese, fresh bread, vegetables, farmers will really come out. And one good thing about those events, like those farmers market and all of that, is that they're really willing to sell as much as they can, right? So I mean, I've
yeah. They don't want
witnessed,
to take anything back,
yeah,
right?
they don't want to take anything back. Like I've been opportune to get some fresh food, like fresh protein, meat. Like farmers are just like, hey, come on, like fresh bacon. Like, oh, you don't have enough money, just let's go, right? So
Just it.
yeah, so sometimes I
That's
really
cool.
do target those windows. Like, hey, the farmers market is going to open next week. Then I just plan my shopping to that. And again, you can also go to some groceries. Like if you one thing I found out again also in the US is like especially for neighborhood groceries, right? So most of them do are very fresh, like direct coming from the farms. Like if you go mostly on Mondays, right? Because farmers will move their stores over the
Yeah.
weekend and all of that.
And I mean, they also have sophisticated ways of keeping those items
Yeah. So
fresh,
you
right?
can
They
get
always
some fresh.
sprinkling water,
Yeah.
keep them
Yeah.
in cool
You can really
temperature,
get some
and
fresh
they keep
sometimes.
them fresh.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing before we go away from, I mean, we're talking too much about food, but one thing before we go away from food is number one, like I definitely miss the availability of African food, which is fine. I don't expect to have all the foods that I
Mhm.
had in Nigeria. I'm not in Nigeria, so given. But one thing is, if food, when you have the food here, it kind of tastes different. For example, the beef.
Mm.
Like when you eat the beef that I ate in Nigeria was used to taste totally different from the beef here. For some reason, like I just don't understand why it tastes different. I mean, I spoke to a friend who works in agriculture, said it's probably the
Mhm.
feed. Like the feed
Absolutely.
here is based on corn, while those are grass fed and they had a lot of pasture compared to just eating on corn. I mean, it tastes totally different. And for that reason, I can count the number of times I've actually eaten beef since I
Yeah.
got here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
mean, I
think
could count on my
your friend is on point in a way. I think it's just the process. It's essentially the process. The process
even
of
the
raising.
corn. I don't
Yeah.
like the corn. The corn is just too sweet for me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's too
So
soft,
yeah,
too
even the
sweet.
corn is sweet. True.
Yeah, extremely too sweet for me. I
But
just
I
feel like
think what happens over time, you just kind of get used to it.
no. I don't. I didn't get used to them. That's the problem.
Maybe
I
you will still get
try.
used to it. I mean, you still have
I
a lot of
try,
time.
and I just can't
You still have a
eat
lot of
them.
time to get used to it anyway. Yeah. I mean, if you want to get food that comes from Africa, you will get, it will just be expensive.
Oh, I
It
mean,
will
they
be
are super
pricey.
expensive, right? You have to
Yeah, and
pay
then you
with
have
your
to
kidney or
plan, yeah,
something. Yeah,
just plan to
yeah,
buy them. So you can always just alternate, like depending on your cash
yeah,
flow and all of that, which is fun.
yeah,
Yeah, one
yeah.
thing I also wanted to talk about that came to my mind
Not on
before,
food, right?
no,
Because
of course
we
not.
discussed a lot of food.
Let's just pivot from food. Is getting a roadside mechanic. Like
Oh my God.
one thing
The roadside mechanic
yeah,
thing, like,
roadside mechanic. There's
and by
always a,
roadside mechanic, I mean, there are roadside mechanics here. Are you talking about
yeah, I
the
mean,
cost of get
the main,
roads?
I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, like
I,
getting an organizer, getting a
yeah,
rewinder,
yeah.
getting a battery charger, getting someone to quickly check your engine and all of that. You quickly, But here, you just have to learn the do it yourself thing. Otherwise, like the bills aren't small, right? The bills are going to
You
run
can't do a lot of things
you.
yourself, right? Like,
I
I mean,
mean,
for example, when I bought my own car, it was on warranty. I mean, I'm still enjoying the warranty. Like,
yeah,
you don't want to tamper with the warranty. Like, you don't
right.
you don't want to void it. So, still enjoying that. Because I remember the last time you took a car to just, what was that? Be trying to do, ended up paying
Yeah,
into the
yeah.
thousands. I was
Spend a
like,
lot of money.
what are we doing
Yeah,
here? I mean, you could have just back in Nigeria, you just call someone, they
yeah,
will come to your house to pick up the car, right?
absolutely.
Instead of driving it down there, they take your car. They're not even saying a lot to you. They're
Yeah,
giving you the bill, and you're just looking like, wow,
yeah,
like everything, they itemize everything. Not like your mechanic back now, just, oh, I need so amount for buying parts. Then
yeah,
you start arguing on how much you want to pay him, everything
yeah.
together, not for each work done. If they change the plug, they charge you for it. If they
Absolutely.
change the oil, they charge you for it. If they turn the tire, they charge you
Yeah.
for it. Everything is itemized.
Yeah.
Man,
So interestingly, the point there is that you really cannot eat your cake and have it, right? So here, like everybody is trying to be professional. So every artisan is charging, like workmanship is really highly valued here, right? Like
yeah.
every skilled
And the
labor,
quality of work too, I'll say is
quality of
kind of
work
yeah.
is, that's
Hmm.
exactly why I say you cannot eat your cake and have it. Like
Yeah.
you are paying for the service, but you can be sure like you will get value for, for what you're
Yeah.
paying for. And if you have any complaint, like you're not satisfied, you can lodge legitimate complaint to say, hey, I'm not satisfied with what you are doing. But come on, like people will charge you. Like these are professionals, whether they are mechanics or whatever, they charge you per hour, you pay their bills and they will get the job done. There's no hiding place. If you cannot pay them, then you have to figure a way to do it by yourself. And to your
Yeah.
point, some of these things you really cannot do by yourself. I mean, I think those are some of the things that I would say, man, back in
That it
Nigeria. I
really
mean,
means, right,
I
guy?
have a number of mechanics on my phone. I could just call and say, hey,
On speed dial.
like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, come and pick my car. So
Man,
I
one
really do
interesting
that.
thing that's closely related to what you just said is buying things, buying furniture and installing them, having to assemble them by yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was this I bought a TV stand,
Yeah.
console, and I mean it was already expensive, and they were going to charge me like maybe 60% of the cost of the item to assemble for me. I mean, but it made sense later because when I started assembling it myself, I couldn't complete it in like 6 hours. I started like
Yeah.
evening around 5. I was still there like 11, 12. I just thought
Mm-hmm.
like, nah, this is crazy. So, like, why do I have to buy pop furniture and still have to install it myself? So for me, it feels like they're just creating a chain of, like, just creating jobs for other people, right? Like, you are buying furniture, you have to pay someone to install it.
Yeah.
You are going to a doctor, you have to pay someone to do something else for you. Like, they just kind of find a way to add other people into the picture, and
Yeah.
you are paying multiple people before
Yeah.
you know it. That furniture thing, sometimes that's the reason I don't buy furniture, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I'm thinking of,
that's
God,
exactly the point you are making, right? Like back to what I said initially, like the idea is that every workman is valued,
yeah,
like every job description, like whatever, as far as they're a professional, like they want to be valued and they want to be paid for what they are doing. Like that's one thing why you really appreciate in this environment because
yeah,
for whatever you are doing, so you get paid the same way, right?
exactly.
So
And if those people are
that's the
living
beauty.
near you also, they're probably paying the same expensive rent, the same cost of living. So
Absolutely.
They need to earn the money in some way too. Also, right?
Yeah.
I bought a couch, right? When I bought the couch, they charged me for the couch. Obviously,
Mhm.
they charged me for delivery. They charged me to assemble. They told me they were going to drop. I mean, I was living on the eighth floor then.
Yeah.
They said they were just going to drop it downstairs, so I had to pay for them to bring it up.
Mm.
That's additional charge to
Yeah.
bring it up because
Mhm.
there was no stairs, so they have to bring it into the elevator. I was like, it's an elevator, it's an elevator, but it was so heavy.
Mm.
Not one person could carry it. So I paid per person they brought along, not just for I paid per person they brought to carry that. I mean, it was in the end I was
Yeah, you spend a lot of
paying
money.
like half of the cost of the couch on setting it up, bringing it up, and they had to take the other couch also, right?
Yeah.
The old one,
It
and
is
I
well.
still had to
Mhm.
pay for that work to
Yeah.
move that for
Yeah.
me. I mean, it was. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot. Yeah, those are some of the
It's
things
what it is.
we took for granted back in
Yeah.
Nigeria.
I mean,
Like, and
one other thing that came to my mind is, well, yeah, I would say renting a car. But interestingly, renting a car is sweeter and easier right here than back
yeah, it's
in
cheap,
Nigeria.
but it's easier, makes your life easier and very comfortable, and not even that expensive,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
It's not even that expensive. That's the at least that's one
Yeah.
upside.
Maybe that
Like,
was one thing I didn't miss, right? Like,
yeah, that's one
yeah.
upside, right? So I mean, you're traveling, you take a rental car to the airport, you drop it
Yeah.
off at the airport office, you
Yeah.
fly, you get to your destination, rent another vehicle, you drive it for 1 week, then drop it off. Like
Yeah.
it's
But
easier there.
but
Like
again, I mean, talking
yeah,
about
yeah,
transportation, like if you are
yeah.
trying to stick to what we miss in Nigeria is getting an interstate vehicle. So remember those instances you want to quickly go to Enugu or you want to go to Calabar or you want to go
Yeah,
to
the Edo
Abeokuta.
State,
You
yeah.
just pick your bag from your house, you dress up and you go to the nearest
Go
bus
to the
stop or
bus
the nearest
station.
garage and you're like, hey, then the bus is already loading 3 or more
Yeah,
passengers to go and you join. It's not going to
yeah, yeah.
work here, right? Like
Yeah, I
it's
mean, it
just
could work, but
it's
it's a
work
very big
is a
risk.
big risk.
Yeah,
Like it's most
yeah. You
likely
have to
not
bank
work.
on the fact that
Yeah,
that they will be missing one or two
yeah,
passengers because
yeah.
you have to buy your tickets ahead and
Absolutely.
get scheduled for a
Okay.
particular time, join at that time, then the bus moves and yeah.
Yeah,
But I think that's even way better because it helps you plan and it
yeah.
helps the company also plan and like just because you could get to the I mean, it's happened in the past that you just get to the bus stations and they tell you there are no
The bus is
buses on
gone.
ground. Like the
The
bus
last
has
bus for
left.
the day
So the
just
last bus
left.
for the day has just left. Like here, there is a schedule. You know how many buses are going in a day. Like if I'm not on one of them, there's no point going to the bus station. But then you just hope that you get there and there is a bus, right?
Yeah.
So they might say, oh, something happened along one road and all of them have not returned. They are like, so those are some of the things. Like man,
Yeah.
it's
I
a
mean, another thing I made just before talking about transportation and the road system is buying things in traffic, like
Oh,
getting
I
drinks, getting water,
mean, that's not
eat
something
and all of that.
that's not something I used to do a lot, but I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I mean, outside of Nigeria, I've seen it in other places. Interestingly, you wouldn't believe.
the
I've
UK,
seen it in not in the UK. I've seen it in some other countries. I've seen it in Morocco. I saw it in Egypt.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. I mean, most African countries, I think it happens in there. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen it in like all those. I mean, even better, it's too close to us. I mean, we are practically have the same culture,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. So that's
yeah.
one
I
thing. Like
mean,
you know, you just kind of miss
you are
sometimes
hungry, you are
when
in
you're hungry
traffic,
and you're like.
and
So I remember a few days ago to we went for an event. Like one of my friend's wife was celebrating her birthday. So, they hosted it in this particular place. And when we were done, of course, that place, there was really no avenue to really buy food. So we just like went for the event and we were like, okay, let's meet in your home, like for the after event, like to eat and dine and all of that. And we're going and we're like, we need to decide. We are very hungry now. We need to decide, should we go drive 30 minutes, 40 minutes back home to go and eat, or should we need to grab food, right? Should we need to go to somewhere, go to a restaurant or go to an eatery to just, or maybe a fast food to pick food, right? And it was at that moment I'm like, if this is Nigeria, you just need to drive to Oshodi traffic, as you are going, I'm like, you come
Well,
with it,
look at
then you
any
can eat
traffic,
and just,
like
right?
you
You
know
can
the
do
way
the
the
two
market
simultaneously,
the
right?
market just springs up anywhere there is
Absolutely, right?
traffic, gridlock or anything.
So,
It just springs up. You just
yeah,
start seeing people
yeah,
bringing food,
yeah.
drinks to the street
Those
and
were
start.
two events I could have done in parallel, right? Like, I would have
Yeah.
just like be driving, go back to that place on time, then I would have
Eh,
just gotten to it
Oh
straight.
my.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that was something I really really
Yeah.
missed. Yeah.
So one thing also is that I think domestic support is something else, especially for people with family, right? So I mean, paying for a nanny here is crazy expensive. Paying for daycare is also expensive by all standards. And I mean, let's see, when you have a baby back in Nigeria, there are tons of people willing to come help, support,
Mhm.
take the burden off you. And there are even people, I mean, like maybe your mother-in-law or even your own mom are ready to stay overnight and be the nanny while you're just chilling, sleeping. And here you just get to do everything by yourself and
Mhm.
sometimes can drive in. Now, that's also one thing that you miss. You get all those things free of charge and you even feel like they are spending
Mhm.
too much time. They should be going to their house at some point. But
Yeah.
you definitely
Yeah.
miss that.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, like if you're going to get some of those things done here, again, you need to engage professionals because everybody's a professional. So you need to get a professional nanny,
Yeah, vetted person
vetted
like that.
person. Otherwise, maybe you might
Yeah,
have to go be dropping your kid or your baby, and by the time you check your bills, maybe you are probably paying like $50 or $60 per hour, or you are paying per month, and
paying half of your salary, half of your earning. Like,
so
I don't
you really want to check that. And again, to your point, you will not you are not going to get like a relative or a family to come
you
give our
can
own
actually
job.
trust 100% with your kid.
I mean, to actually leave his or her own job, right, to come take care of your kids. So again, it still
I
come back
mean,
to how much do you want to pay versus, the security and all of that. So it's really very tricky. It's definitely one thing that you will miss when you compare to back home or back in Africa or in Nigeria. And something closely related to that is getting a chauffeur, like a driver, like
oh my God.
car assistant. I mean, those are luxury, right? Like,
I mean, back in Nigeria, like, I mean, I
yeah.
can get it. I mean, I
Yeah.
can pay
I
for
used
a
to have a
driver.
driver.
Like,
I mean, I
how
drive,
much do you want to
but
pay for
I
a
had a
driver?
driver
Yeah.
because I just needed a driver, like I knew I'd be busy. I mean, I've had
But
multiple
yeah,
drivers actually, I can recall, right? So, yeah. So to really, I mean, it's not even in my radar. Like, it's even unthinkable.
why we want to pay for a driver? Yeah. Like,
Right.
why?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's
Mm.
absolutely, it's,
It's just a crazy amount of money
yeah.
that you need to pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
I don't
interesting.
like where, I mean, it's been fun conversation. One thing that I also want to bring up is, I don't know, maybe practicing religion. I don't know what the experience has been here. Back in Nigeria, really, that let's say churches and mosques are on every street. It's
Yeah.
easy to just find a church. I'm not even talking about church where you'll find a lot of Africans. I'm talking about
Yeah.
churches in
Hmm.
general, mosques
Yeah.
in general, places of worship in general.
Yeah.
They're just like it's like looking for needle in a haystack. Or
Yeah.
how do they?
Yeah.
What's that? How does that saying go? So it's like that. It's hard to just find
Yeah.
any place of worship like that.
Yeah, I think to your point, or let me say the point must be made that the culture shock thing, like there's a sharp difference, like as you move across Africa to Europe and to the US in terms of religion and how it is being practiced, right? Because it's a total mindset, I mean, mind shift that you really need to have. I'll give you an example. I remember then back in the UK, I remember our church was in a neighborhood, right? Nice neighborhood and all of that. And there was this occasion, our pastor was like, "Hey, we might not really be able to open today or something like." The last time, the last time our neighbor complained, and they actually reported us to the environmental, protection agency and all of that.
Was
Like
it like a registered church,
it
proper church,
is,
or
it
just
is. But
using
again,
a
there are
makeshift?
there are
Okay.
there are different laws, right? Like you know, everybody will have their own rights. And that was why I stressed the fact that when you have some of these buildings within the neighborhood, right, there will be threshold, like amount of noise that you can make and all of that. So, but again, when another person complains, like a neighbor, right, or someone living within that neighborhood, or someone complains or raise an alarm or something, right? So they will need to investigate, and you really don't want that. So I'm just
I mean,
trying
you
to
don't
say,
want the government in your business.
you're right. You need to want government in your business, right? So I'm just trying to say
Yeah,
those are things that you wouldn't imagine. Like I wouldn't imagine that. Like why would my
like
neighbor go and
someone will
complain
call the
about my
government or
church,
call the
right? Like,
police on the
hey, some
church.
people are making noise over there, and I really don't know why they are making noise, right? Maybe you should
I mean,
check
the
them
way we
out.
even revere like religious people
Yeah.
or like places of worship,
Mm.
like we think they are sacred, and even if you're a person of the opposite, like of a different religion, like say you're a Muslim and there's a church beside you, they make a lot of noise. Somehow you're still careful around like calling the
Yeah.
authorities on them, saying
Yeah, I
like
see your
back in
point.
Africa, like there's still that
Yeah. Yeah.
like we still hold them sacred. Let me put it that way.
True.
Like so we
True.
don't
Yeah.
just think church. We don't say bad things about churches,
Mhm.
about mosques, about religious people. We
Yeah.
refrain from doing that. Or like here, like nobody gives that
Mhm.
rat.
Yeah.
Like they're calling them where you are. I mean, that's really interesting. So one more thing that I also want to bring up. I mean, this has been a shock for me is
Mhm.
the amount of crime that happens in this country. If you watch the local news, I
Mm.
mean, I don't know whether it's purposely designed to stoke fear in people. I don't know. But the local news channels report
I
crimes.
don't
And
watch it.
I mean, I try to just know what's happening around me. Like sometimes there's a construction going on or one highway that you plan to take. And I mean, just watching it's kind of like it doesn't take a lot of effort to just put the TV on and be multitasking doing something else, on like me actively going proactively going to like a news website and reading, oh, what's up with this road today, is anything going to happen, right? So sometimes you pick up on those kind of things, but the amount of crime they report,
Mm.
like burglary, like breaking into like convenience store robbery, like
Mhm.
car theft is just shocking. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering, like, think maybe it happened or it happens also like that a lot
Yeah.
in
It's
Nigeria.
just
They don't get
underreported.
reported.
Yeah. The coverage is
Yeah,
not
they
there.
don't get
Yeah.
reported as
Mhm.
much as they do here. And
Yeah.
here it's breaking news,
Yeah.
updates on the same story. They just keep
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
they just keep giving updates every 15 minutes. Sometimes you think, oh, maybe they caught the person they've been looking for.
It's
No,
the same
it's just
news.
that
Yeah.
somebody that went to school with
Mhm.
this person, went to elementary school with this person, they've been able to locate that person. That person said he was or she was a nice person back in school. So that's the updates you have on this. And so the over report things also here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's still a lot of crime that I mean, you could be living here and think like nothing is going on. No crimes, everything is fine. But now, if you watch local news, you know that man, a lot goes on here
Yeah,
also.
yeah. There's a lot going on. To your point, I think that the difference, or maybe part of the difference, will be that news might not be well covered the way it's being covered there, right? Like a lot of things just happen, they are not reported, there's no adequate coverage, and or people just like try to hide information under the carpet and all of that. But better technology, better media,
Exactly.
better
I mean, I'm not saying
coverage,
that I miss Nigeria media like
right?
that. I mean,
So,
I can still watch them, but there's
mm,
too much repetition of content back in
yeah,
Nigeria. Like and there are few channels to pick from, right? Unless you have maybe even DSTV. Like back then, you pay for this
yeah.
subscription. They can repeat the same movie 4 5 times in a day. Not Joe Wild is showing the same thing 5 times a day. Like it's at a point you just keep moving around. Oh, I've seen this before. I've seen this before. I think, why do I pay for this? Maybe weekend Premier League matches, La
Mhm.
Liga, and just football. Other than that, there's really no value in paying for those for paying for cable TV. So here you have like myriads of options to choose from. Unlike so I mean, I still prefer the media here. I mean, it's best to know what's going on, even if it's
Mhm.
overreported, than not knowing
I'm not
what's
knowing at
going
all.
on.
Mhm.
Yeah, not knowing what's going on. I mean, those are some of the. I'm sure if we spend 2 hours on this conversation, we always
Yeah. Yeah.
remember one thing that we're missing from back home. And yeah, I think that's everything from me. If you have anything else to
Yeah.
add, that
Yeah.
you might want
That's
to.
we can it's a good place to call it a wrap. I mean we can go on and on,
Yeah,
like filling your gas, like going to the gas station.
Yeah,
getting a barber and all of that. Like this was we
exactly.
were
I mean,
strong and
finding sometimes they just see you being bushy like this, but look,
yes.
getting the barber shop around you that knows how to cut
Absolutely.
African hair
Absolutely.
is so hard. Like,
And I
I mean,
could
you will find them around, but
regret.
cutting, yeah,
Yeah. So I mean we could
so
go on
hard.
and on. Like sometimes you just feel like you should have some kind of powers that you could import, right? You could
Those
just
things, just
transport
bring
people
those
from,
things. Yeah,
just bring them here to just make things happen, like
yeah,
just remember your barber back in Lagos or somewhere in Abuja and you're like, oh, I wish this guy is here,
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, same, man.
yeah, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it's been good having this conversation with
yeah,
you. I
I,
mean,
I I hope our viewers really enjoyed it. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, if you live back in Lagos in Nigeria, you just know like you're really enjoying, right? Like it's not really all because most
eh,
of there's a tendency to
it's
just
not
be like,
rosy
oh,
now. I just think when
yeah,
you are there, you are just
I
enjoying
mean,
everything 100%. There are a
problemo.
lot of
Yeah,
sacrifices
yeah,
too, yeah.
yeah.
But
Even
I know,
visiting fun places, right? There are a lot of fun
yeah,
places in Nigeria, not
yeah,
expensive. Like you really
yeah.
get to have good quality fun, hang out with people, and you just take it for granted until you get to a place and you're like, oh my God, like you need to pay. You
And
really need to pay,
I know there's
or you need to
somebody
travel a
watching
long
this right
distance.
now that will be saying, "Do you want to swap places with me?" Like you are here complaining, like it's not complaining really. Like you are here
Yeah,
talking about these things, but do you want to swap places with me? I'll
yeah,
trade what I have for what you have in the blink of an eye. So
yeah.
I mean, we're just trying to share some perspectives on some of the things that we've really missed and
Mhm,
we wish we could have here. And so, but then you can have it all. So it's no matter where you're staying back in Nigeria, it's
mhm.
usually like a trade off decision.
Yeah.
Like you'll be making a lot of trade offs. And yeah, so I mean, if you've enjoyed this episode, then you have to subscribe to this channel
Yeah.
so that when we bring on other conversations like this, you can join us. And we'll be doing some lives pretty soon. Like you can join us live and contribute live these channels. And don't forget, we also share information on how you can go study abroad, immigrate abroad, and
Yeah.
any another educational content. So don't forget to check those out and hit the like button, subscribe to this channel. And until next time that we'll see you again, stay blessed.
Right.